Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 3 video. The latest patch 2.5 is live. The patch is live, guys. It's live a full week ahead of schedule. Or, to be fair, not ahead of schedule, but ahead of the schedule that we anticipated. Tuesdays are typically patch days, and this is a Tuesday, but season is starting on the 31st, so we expected the 28th to be the day that patch 2.5 would go live. Blizzard has pleasantly surprised us here, and that's great, because this patch provides quality of life changes that makes playing this game so much more enjoyable. In this video, we'll go over those features as well as the new content that's being added, what meta changes that we could expect to see. Also, stay tuned for other videos. We're going to have a top 10 build list for patch 2.5 for season 10, and we've been releasing videos for builds that you can run in the next season, but starting with current patch 2.5. As of today, March 21st, this patch is live on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. The biggest and best feature that's coming with patch 2.5 is the armory. This is a little closet typically located near your stash that allows you to save up to 5 different builds per character. You can name these builds so you can clearly delineate speed farming, greater rift pushing, support build, etc. And it's going to save a snapshot of your character's current gear, socketed gems, including legendary gems and regular gems, your active and passive skills, and your Kanai's Q powers. Your Paragon points won't be saved, so that's one thing that you will have to still manually do, but it's understandable because your Paragon points will generally change when you change build. You're going to gain more Paragon points. When you swap to a saved armory build, it's actually going to find your highest gems. So let's say you didn't have the highest level of gems socketed into your armor when you saved the build, and then later on you crafted better gems, they'll be automatically added in. Same thing with legendary gems. Let's say you have, for whatever reason, 2 boons of the Hoarder. One is higher level, it'll take the higher level one regardless of which one you initially put in. That said, this is only if the gear is in your stash. So if you're sharing gear between characters, that gear needs to be put back into your stash. That said, it'll warn you if there's a piece of gear missing. When you try to equip a build, it'll tell you such and such piece is missing, a little reminder to go find it on your other character, or if you accidentally salvaged it. Because that's one thing, the armory does not work as a storage unit. This is not additional stash space, it's really just for build swapping. This way, if you have gear that is shared between 2 builds on the same character, you can still equip that. It's not that all your gear is taken away and hidden for you somewhere in void space. And as you know, it's pretty typical to have at least some shared gear pieces between your builds, again, depending on how different those builds may be. But particularly for speed farming variants and greater rift pushing variants, or solo and party play. The other new quality of life feature, crafting material storage. Thank God. Now all your crafting materials are stored just like blood shards. They do not take up stash space or inventory space any longer. You're going to have a separate crafting materials tab that you can open up, and you can see everything that you have, and it just gets automatically dumped into there once you pick it up. Also, this affects how cube recipes work. When you're going to go to your Herodric cube, your Kanai's cube rather, you'll select a recipe, and some of the recipes may be different. You'll know that there's more recipes now. There isn't any new recipes, it's just to separate out the recipes that required you to put in specific crafting materials to change one into the other. So now you have to select the crafting recipe that you want, and it'll pull those materials from your crafting page. Again, this is just another great quality of life alteration, change. I'm saying change too often. You'll have to forgive me, I'm a little bit excited because after playing this on PTR for so long, it was really rough to go back to live servers and not have these quality of life changes, so that's why I'm really glad that this released earlier than anticipated. We've got a couple class changes here, but the only really relevant one is Barbarian Seismic Slam. The Rumble rune now consumes all remaining fury. This now serves the same purpose of Ancient Spear Boulder Toss. This does have some implications for certain Barbarian builds, particularly our Leapquake Barbarian, which now has a slot freed up for an additional skill, allowing it to maybe push 1 to 2 Greater Rift levels higher, and you can check out our updated Leapquake guide right over here. Alright, onto items, onto a new feature being added that is Primal Ancient items, and these have gone through some iteration on the test server. We've gotten some thoughts from David Brevik, the Diablo 2 developer. Just a very, first impression thoughts. And Blizzard did change what Primal Ancients were in response to community feedback, and I'm a lot happier with this current design of Primal Ancients than the first iteration. And Blizzard actually took some time in the patch notes to give their design philosophy behind the Primal Ancients. So the issue that Blizzard was trying to address was people who are in a state where they are just farming paragons and upgrading their gems. That's basically what they've done. They have all their gear, and it's just kind of gotten to that boring state of the game. That's when Primal Ancients are intended to kick in. You can only start finding Primal Ancient items once you've completed a solo 70 Greater Rift. That seems to be a fair benchmark, and every build guide that I put out for an endgame build can easily clear at least a 70, so if you follow that, guys, you'll be set. It might take a little time to get to that point, but follow a build, you'll be able to do this. This is completely an acceptable Greater Rift level. And what a Primal Ancient is an even rarer type of Ancient, and it rolls with maxed out stats. So typically when you find an item, or always when you find an item, there's a certain number of intelligence it could have, dexterity, vitality, whatever it is, crit chance. All those rolls will be on the upper end of the spectrum. They're also definitely going to drop as smart loot. So if you're a Demon Hunter, you won't get a strength item, it'll always be dex. And the Greater Rift 70 solo benchmark, it's a separate unlock for normal and hardcore, as well as seasonal and non-seasonal. So at the start of a new season, you'll have to first get to 70. Even if you've done that 70 on non-season, this is so that you can't just start off a season and automatically, luckily find a perfect item. Also, anytime you re-roll one of the stats on a primal, it'll re-roll perfectly. It'll always be the max roll. Another little thing that Blizzard's adding that I'm really glad about and I've been asking for a long time. Ancient items now salvage into more than one Forgotten Soul. You're gonna get 3, and a Primal Ancient will salvage into 15 Forgotten Souls. Blizzard made a couple changes to legendary items, notably the Strong Arm Bracers. Their bonus, that bonus damage that you get for knocking back an enemy, is now applied when the knockback occurs rather than when the enemy lands. So, and also the duration has been increased to 6 seconds, so this translates into a considerable buff for Strong Arms. Class sets have been buffed. For the Crusader, Roland's Legacy has received a considerable buff, and this does allow Rolands to push into maybe the low 90s. It's a better set now, but Roland still suffers from some usability issues, and Crusader already has the best sets, or the best set rather. The Hammerden set is still going to be miles better than Roland's, and the Legacy of Nightmares build is still a lot more powerful than Roland's. But if you're really dead set on Roland's, then you could be viable with Roland's if you really like the playstyle. For the Monk, the Inna set is being buffed, a 25% damage buff. This closes the gap a little bit more with the top Monk build, which is the Raiment Generator. Inna's is definitely viable. For Witch Doctor, Zuni Maz's set, I've got a build guide, a starter build guide on the Zuni set coming up soon. This set has been buffed considerably, and sort of the same thing with Roland's. It's now able to push maybe into the low 90s. The issue is that Zuni set, the best build with Zunis is basically just an inferior version of a Helltooth build. What's great though is that Zunis is the starter set for Season 10, and as a starter set, it is an amazing set. It is really going to help you get through the early levels. It's going to be a little tougher to push the highest content. It's not an endgame set, but as a starter set, it's possibly the most powerful now. For the Wizard, the Delzir set is being buffed, but it's probably not making its way to anywhere near viability. Maybe as a support build, we'll have to see what emerges in the meta, what people discover moving into Season 10. Now, the Demon Hunter, great news for the Demon Hunter. The Shadow set has now been made a viable build, particularly for group play, thanks to the Holy Point Shot now receiving a legendary power where it makes Impale throw 2 additional knives, so that's triple damage now, combined with changes to the Shadow set to allow the 6-piece set bonus to apply on all 3 attacks. So triple damage now to the Impale build. We have a video up on that. Again, if you like the playstyle, it is viable for solo. It won't be the best solo Demon Hunter build, but it could possibly be replacing or competing with the Generator Monk for a position in the the group meta for taking out Rift Guardians. Now, we saw some changes to the Barber for the Witch Doctor. There was a couple patches ago that a Barber build emerged as ridiculously overpowered, and then it got nerfed to the ground before PTR ended. And it's seeming that the change to the Barber still hasn't revived it. I tried testing with it in early PTR. Nothing seemed to have really changed significantly. Barring someone discovering something, it's looking like the Barber build is not coming back. For the Wizard, big change here. The Mantled Heal Ring, which a large percentage of Wizard builds now revolve around, pets such as Hydras can now trigger the Mantled Heal effect. Meanwhile, there's a slight nerf to channeled skills, so this serves as a double buff, if you will, to the Hydra-specific lightning build. We've got a build guide up on that. Odds are Hydra Lightning Wizard will be the wizard build, the go-to wizard build for Season 10. It's also possible that this build might compete with a Generator Monk in the Impale Demon Hunter for that spot in the 4-man meta for taking out the Rift Guardians. We got a couple minor changes there that we won't really go over because they're not super relevant, but now for Adventure Mode, we're actually seeing some changes here to joining public games. So, at the start of a season, right, you're trying to get into public games, unless you have a group to run with. You know, playing in groups tends to be more efficient than playing by yourself, unless you just get unlucky with your group. And you tend to see a lot of leechers as part of the issue. Now, at some point, Blizzard tried to address the leeching issue by making a Paragon requirement for joining higher Torment levels. Blizzard is now doing away with that Paragon level requirement and making it a solo Greater Rift requirement. And these requirements start at Torment 7, where to join a Torment 7 game, you must have completed a solo Greater Rift 30. To join T11, solo Greater Rift 50. And for T13, solo Greater Rift 60. And this only applies to the PC and Mac version, not to the console versions of the game. So this will certainly help with leeching issues, but it's obviously an impairment for players who hope to just play support builds. It's kind of forcing them to have to make a solo viable build. But to be fair, if you're playing a support build, you're likely playing with pre-made groups, and that's what we gotta emphasize here. These are only for public games. If you're playing with someone that invites you to a party, or you invite to a party in a closed game, no requirements. There's lots of great communities that you can join to find groups. I encourage you all to join the Rhykkers Raiders community in both NA and EU. And on to some of the final changes of patch 2.5. There are some changes to Greater Rifts. The levels that spawn, you're gonna have less odds of finding caves, Keep Depths, and Zoltan Kuhl's archives. You'll have a greater chance of finding Stinging Winds, Festering Woods, Pandemonium, Tristram Cathedral, and Ariad Crater and Realm of the Banished. If you can't recognize those places by name, the TLDR is that you're more likely to get good Greater Rifts and less likely to get bad ones. Also, the number of spear-throwing goatmen and skeletal archers that appear in Greater Rifts has been reduced in certain enemy populations. So, fewer door throwers, guys. Seriously, the hitbox on those spears is out of control. Some set dungeons have been rendered a little easier, and a great change here for people playing public games, bonus acts have been removed from the game with regards to bounties. Basically now, every act is a bonus act. Completing any act will give you double the materials that you used to get. Instead of getting 2 caches though, you're going to get 1 mega cache that includes the contents of a normal and a bonus cache. And the final quality of life change is that you can now spend 100 Paragon points by holding Control and left clicking. I don't know how you manage that on console. And that wraps up the changes coming to patch 2.5. So 2.5 is a big quality of life change patch. We're not seeing a ton of new content or huge shifts in the meta or changes in builds. We are seeing some, which we've been highlighting in our build guides and will continue to highlight. And if you're not familiar with the group meta, group party compositions, we got a video on that. And again, that 4-player group meta is possibly changing. So while this patch may seem light on content, it's really heavy on quality of life changes. It's not about giving you a ton more of new content to go through, but rather making the existing content more pleasurable to go through. There's no update yet on when the Necromancer is coming out, but we could expect the Necromancer to be probably the biggest amount of new content that this game will get in the near future, and it's bound to shake up the meta. And that wraps up this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts on patch 2.5. Are you excited for it? Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch and Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.